Welcome to Tax Court TV. I'm your host, Melinda Tolbert, Chief Executive Officer of MJ Tax Relief Group.
And I'm your host, Josie Harris-Walton, tax partner of QPWB Law Firm. Hello everyone. Today we are interviewing Miss Barbara Moore, who was actually indicted on one count charge. Hi Miss Moore, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. We're so glad for you to be here.
I'm honored.
Yes, so you were indicted on one count, which was false claims for refunds. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Wow.
Tell me a little bit about that. How did that come about?
Actually, I believe the case goes back to 2012. I did a business return for a client, and I included estimated tax payments on the return because a client had said to me that they had made estimated tax payments. We received a letter 30 days after the tax return was submitted, and they sent a frivolous letter basically stating that there was no merit to include the estimated tax payment. The tax return was immediately amended and mailed into the IRS, and it was accepted by the IRS. And what is it? Is the 6-year statute on tax returns about a week before it was going to expire, they indicted me.
So yes. So your indictment would happen a week before it was expired. So
That
I'm
is
assuming
correct.
it was because this indictment was for tax year 2012.
It was for 2012, okay.
And actually 2013.
Okay,
It was 2013, 11, 20.
okay.
And so it was a week, and it was gonna be expired.
That is
And
correct.
so that's when they indicted you.
That is correct.
Wow, that is so crazy, right?
Is that for, what was the statute on? For you to file? Or
It's a
for them-
6-year statute on tax returns and
For
all
fraud.
tax returns for fraud.
Fraud is actually, there isn't a statute.
There's a six. So on this one,
On tax returns,
on
there
tax
is.
returns, 6 years. Yeah.
For what though? To file it or to be prosecuted?
I think it's from the filing date. I think
But it's to be prosecuted. It's 6 years.
okay.
Yeah.
Something
6 years.
like that.
Yeah, for this particular return.
Got you.
Yes.
And
6
this was
years.
a corporation. This
It
wasn't
was a
a
business.
1040. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
So it was 6 years, and so right
Wow.
before those 6 years, they indicted you on this
That
particular
is
charge.
correct.
So somebody was paying attention to the clock.
Oh yeah, the IRS
Wow.
was paying attention to the clock because there was other tax years, right? That they came about.
That
other
is
tax
correct,
years.
but there was they couldn't prove any fraudulent activity as a
It's
result.
always
of it.
hard to prove.
Yes, and did you file the return, or did you assist, or did you actually file this return?
No, I actually filed the return.
Okay, so you signed this return.
So tell
I
us
did
about-
not sign the return. My signature was not on it. My printed name was on the return.
Okay.
Okay.
It was
So
not a
tell us
signature.
about the return. What was on the return, and were you audited, or what happened?
There was never an audit.
Okay.
That was never done. Estimated tax payments was on there. And then once the federal government interviewed the client, they said, no, I didn't have estimated tax payments, but the client told me they had estimated tax payments. The client did sign the tax return. However, again, my printed name was on it. I never signed the tax return, but it was electronically submitted.
And so the client actually said it was estimated taxes, but then when the IRS came to them, they said it wasn't.
That is correct.
Okay.
Because the tax person, or client, I should say, actually had been previously convicted herself, and I believe out of fear she lied.
Oh, so she pretty much told on you, pretty much.
Well, she couldn't. There wasn't anything for her to tell, but yeah, but she lied on me. Yes.
Oh, she did.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Clearly.
That's I always tell people. Your taxpayers will throw you under the bus.
Absolutely.
Quick as
Absolutely.
they will throw you under the bus. This is a prime example. They throw you under the bus pretty much, and
Right.
they didn't have that. Wow.
And this particular client had a janitorial business. And so, you know, I mean, I knew that she was previously indicted, but she was off paper. I mean, she had started a very successful janitorial business. Her bookkeeping, every line item on that tax return was good. It was reconciled and there was nothing wrong with it. What was on there was the estimated tax payments. And so,
So what happened? I read most of your case, and I saw something about capital gains. What was that about?
they said that there was capital gains on there. On that particular tax return, there was no capital gains on that tax return. But that's what they were alluding to.
That's what the IRS alleged. Okay.
Alleged, yes.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Okay.
And you, and so what happened? How did yours come about when you, after you got indicted? What happened after that?
Actually, once I got indicted, I had a wonderful attorney who actually was there for me and went to her office. And from her office, you know, we went down to the federal courthouse and I went back there and did my fingerprints and left and went home.
And then you started your case.
I started my journey.
Did you at first did you plead? What did you plead?
I know initially, because I was advised to just plead not guilty, which is what you do, I guess, in most cases. I pled not guilty, and I did try to fight it to some degree initially, and you know, just decided that there's just no way to win when you have the federal government having a 98.6% indictment ratio. There's just no chance. And being 65, about to turn 66 years old, I may have even turned 66 by the time I was indicted because
So
my
you were
birthday is
66 years old when you got indicted on these
That
charges?
is correct.
Wow.
Wow.
I am now
So
68.
They don't even care about
Don't
how
care about
old
the
you
age.
are.
No.
You had a medical condition too.
And
right?
actually, on December 27th of 2019, I went into emergency surgery because I have a degenerative spine. 3 months later, we were in the middle of COVID, and I had a second emergency surgery on my lower back. So I'm going through this situation, understanding what the federal government is doing to me at the time. And my doctor even wrote a notice basically saying that based on my medical situation, that number one, I shouldn't be in any type of facility around anyone else. But, you know, I was fortunate enough that I was never had handcuffs on. They didn't do anything like that. They indicted me, allowed me to go home, and I self-surrendered after the indictment.
And then you end up, because from your case I see you end up pleading
I did.
guilty, okay? On that one count.
That is correct.
And what happened during the trial? What
Well,
happened
there
during
was-
your sentencing?
Well, during the sentencing, the judge was very hard on me. And I had some great reference letters and people who was really standing up for me, who wrote some great letters. And the judge told me that I should be ashamed of myself.
Wow.
That, you know, if she could go outside the guidelines, that she would. She went back to, in my 30s, I was 31, 32 years old, and I wrote some bad checks. That was all paid for, by the way, but I wrote some bad checks. And she said that I should be ashamed of myself and that there was no reason for it. And she humiliated me and slammed me like.
Wow.
And she told me that my guidelines fell between 17 months and 21 months, and she gave me the max. And the prosecutor asked her not to do that. The prosecutor asked her to go below the guidelines.
Probation, correct?
That is correct. Now, this was my attorney asked, but the prosecutor also asked that they go outside the guidelines and go under the guidelines. And she said, absolutely, she will not.
So the judge went against not only your attorney's consideration, but the prosecutor as well. So basically, she was trying to make an example out of you, which
That is correct.
is, from my understanding, she makes that statement to many people that comes into her courtroom.
Because normally a judge will go on the recommendations of the
Right.
Department of Justice. I mean, this very seldom I see the judge go outside the recommendation of the Department of Justice. So that was a very unusual situation that happened.
And my criminal defense attorney even said to the judge, I know this lady. I've gotten to know her on a personal basis. The person you're describing is not this person.
And so the amount that the government claimed, I'm just going to read from
It was
your
104.
transcript. They claimed, and they tried to make you pay a restitution of $104,000. I think it's important for everybody to know that the client, they didn't even receive a payout.
That is correct. And they never charged me with restitution. I've never had a restitution.
And
But they used that $104,000 to put me in a guideline
That's right.
between 17 to
That's what they
24
did.
months, when
Yep.
really I should have fell into whatever the category 1 is,
Yep.
the lowest category. So even if I was guilty of it, I should have gotten strictly
How
probation.
is that even possible?
because what they say is that it's the amount of controversy, not the fact that
They
it's the
called
fact that you actually the IRS could have paid the money out, not the fact that the IRS didn't pay the
Didn't.
money out.
And they call it criminal intent.
Criminal
Just-
intent, yes,
Intent.
criminal intent. That's what
So
they say.
criminal intent means that you got into my brain and you assume
Right.
that I did it with criminal activity
That's right.
intent.
That's right.
Well, if that's the case, why would it have been amended and corrected? Way before the
Wow.
So
indictment.
so
Way.
let's make sure we go back.
Yes, we need to go
Go
back.
back. So I thought you said that. So it was amended and corrected and took off
years,
taken off?
years before, within the first 90 days that it was submitted to the IRS.
Wow. I mean, I'm shocked because I know your case. I
Yes.
know your case, but I'm shocked at because that's one thing I did not know about the case, that it was amended, that the tax returns was amended, because of course the IRS never, Department of Justice never tell you that. They never say that it was amended, and it was accepted.
And it was
not
accepted.
just amended,
It was
It was
accepted.
accepted by the IRS.
That is correct.
Before any type of
Before any type-
examination,
no.
investigation, or anything.
That is correct.
Wow.
Wow. And so they try to make you pay a restitution of
$40,000.
$40,000.
I'll always remember that number.
104.
And they couldn't even put the dollar amount against me because there was nothing done. But there is such a charge, and everybody that's listening to this need to understand, called criminal intent. Regardless,
Yeah.
if you've ever done anything in your past and they feel like you can't fight the federal government. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you have. You can't.
Because you and I think maybe the fact of, and that's, I'm not saying, I don't know, the financial issue from when you were 30 years old came up
Right.
doing
And it was
sentencing.
literally 35 years.
Yeah, that was a long
Before.
That was that was decades before.
Yeah.
It's not even on my record anymore.
Yeah.
They couldn't even use that against me in points.
But I guess they're saying if you did something in your past, well, it was financial,
Right.
obviously you had to do this
Right.
as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even though it was a criminal intent in your mind that you did this as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had it. Wow, even though it was amended. So how would it be intent if you amended the return after 90 days after it was processed?
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? And I think, and the crazy thing is that they just put you in the sentencing guidelines, but you got no restitution.
None.
Because technically, your restitution is the amount that was owed to the government,
That is correct.
right?
That is correct.
That
There
is-
was nothing owed to the government.
That was it.
So nothing owed to the government, but
you
you
still
got to
got
go to jail.
for 21
Oh,
months.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, so talk us through that, because
Yeah.
I'm blown away.
I am blown away too.
Talk us through you amending the tax return. So this tax return, technically, it didn't even exist
No.
because it was amended.
Because it was amended.
Okay, so you were indicted. Walk us through the court process. What happened through the court process?
I mean, that was pretty much the court process. That was the only thing that they had that they
You
could
only had
actually
one-
use. It was
one-
only the
okay.
one count. Yes, yes.
Was
now
it-
they did look at other corporate tax returns that I had prepared, but they couldn't charge me with it.
Because
they
over
were
6
all
years.
they went through their
Oh,
whole
statute.
auditing procedure. They just couldn't. Well, not just because they had expired either. Not just on that term because they did. Most of them had expired, but they just said that they do believe that I did that one particular tax return with criminal intent to get.
And I wonder, was it because
$104,000.
of the taxpayer? Because the taxpayer said that you did.
That is correct.
See what I'm saying?
That is exactly
Yes,
why.
I did see where the taxpayer, in your transcript, it stated that you took the initiative to help the taxpayer figure out what was going on.
Right.
You even put them on a conference call with the Internal
That is
Revenue
correct.
Service.
I did.
And I don't know what happened after that, but the taxpayer said that you kind of went ghost and nobody could reach you or nobody heard from you again after that.
When I actually have clear pictures and videos of us even being in Los Angeles, they came to Los Angeles and visited me during that time
Wow.
frame.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's why I always tell her she should never plead. But at the end of the day, I understand she was being scared
Yes.
of the government and saying, I can't win this because
is
of my
correct.
prior.
Right.
And that's exactly what the judge brought up was the prior.
Yeah,
Exactly.
from 35 years ago.
That's
That
exactly
should
what
be
the
a
judge brought up.
statute.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
But she was, she was
Yeah, and so, and this has a huge bearing. I'm a business professional.
Right.
It has a huge, I'm embarrassed. I was
Yeah.
even embarrassed to
Tough
come and
shame.
talk to you guys.
Yeah.
My previous business partner said, I don't know if I would go. I said, you know what? Sometimes it's time to just tell the truth.
That's right.
That's right.
Because I went into a situation where we told everyone I was taking a medical leave of absence. Most believed it, but there were some people that was gossiping about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so there was still that aspect of it. Nobody in my family has ever been incarcerated.
Wow.
Not one person.
Wow. How did that affect your family? Were you being
Oh my
incarcerated?
gosh. You know what? I think it hurt my husband to his core. He cried. My husband is, almost 11 years older than I am. And so, we're both going through it. Even though he makes a comfortable retirement, I was making a great salary. We live a comfortable lifestyle. It's not about your lifestyle.
Right.
It's about the fact that you're snatching my life from me for something that if I was going to do it fraudulently, I even said to the agent, I said, I know how to do it. You know I know how to do it. And I could have did it and got away with it.
Right.
So it's no way I'm going to put my signature, risk anything like that when I actually clearly know how to do it. I know how to prepare a fraudulent tax return and get money.
Yeah. But they just,
Clearly.
wow.
So it hurt, and the thing is, even I remember the agent even saying, he said, yeah, like we don't doubt that. We don't even doubt the fact that
you didn't do it.
he said that,
Yeah.
sitting right in front of us.
He said, we don't doubt the fact that you didn't do it.
Wow.
He just said, we have this one tax return.
And it's going to expire.
It's going to
And
expire.
yeah. So people need to understand when the federal government exhausts manpower hours, they're going to indict you. You can go to trial and fight them if you want to. They're going to indict you.
And and I think that's the reason why they win 98.5% of the time, because they're only going to indict people that they know
No, they're gonna win.
They're going to win off of.
Or
That's-
that they're
that's
going to
why
plead
they're
guilty.
indicted.
they're going to plead guilty.
Everybody
yeah.
incarcerated is not guilty.
That's true.
Right.
You're right.
Right.
You're
It's not
exactly
true.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Nope.
Now, I'm not
Share
saying I
with
haven't,
us.
don't get it twisted. I'm not saying I haven't did some things in my past.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not even
yeah,
saying that I
yeah.
have, right. So, but that's not what I was being charged with.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, don't do that. Like nobody's perfect. I'm certainly not perfect.
Yes, you're right.
But what I was charged with was bogus.
Wow. So the government came in and turned your world upside down. After you were sentenced, what was your thought process as you were standing there and you received jail time for money that was never paid out?
I was scared. There was a lot of my friends and family that was in court with me that day. Even my attorney. I was very emotional. It hurt. I thought I had died. Like I thought it was a moment that I was like living in a completely different universe. You know, that was just a moment. But that's not the hardest day. The hardest day was self-surrendering.
And let's talk a little bit about the self-surrender, because I know the case. It was right before Thanksgiving. Was it? No, right.
It was right after Thanksgiving.
Right after Thanksgiving.
And
And you asked to be wait until after Christmas to spend the
That is
last Christmas with
correct.
your family. And what happened?
she denied it.
Wow.
Yeah.
She denied it. It was December 1st of 2021, a day I never forget. And I told my husband, I said, we've got to leave because I want to make sure we're getting there on time. So we got there, and you know, everybody was trying to have good spirits, my sister and my friends, and my husband was there. And when they saw me having to go behind that steel door, I saw my husband break.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. My husband, yeah, literally.
And I'm talking about her husband is a very tall man, very military.
Yeah.
And for him to break down, but you should have heard him in court, how he talked about his wife, how amazing she was, right? In court, pleading for his wife to not go to jail.
Yeah.
You know, and for him to break down like that at the jail was
Yeah.
something we couldn't take. Something that nobody could take. What about your children? Like,
Actually,
how did that
my
affect
son, they didn't know. They did
Wow.
not know when I got sentenced. They had no idea. When I got sentenced, of course, they kept postponing it. It was COVID. They kept postponing it. And so the Thanksgiving before I self-surrendered, I sit down with my son, came up from Jacksonville with my two little grandbabies and his wife, and I told them that I had something to share with them. But my kids had no idea through the whole process.
Wow.
No, they did
I
not.
never knew that.
Yeah.
They didn't know.
And so I did tell them right after Thanksgiving, about 2 or 3 days before I had to self-surrender. And they just assured me, Mom, we got you. You're going to be okay, and you're going to get through the process. But no, my kids did not know. I didn't really share it with anybody
And you
because I thought I was waiting for a miracle.
Yeah.
I honestly was just waiting for a miracle.
Your attorney wanted to appeal.
Yes.
He wanted to appeal because he just knew
Yeah.
there's no way she's going to get
Yeah.
any jail time because of the fact that no money was
Yeah.
Yeah.
had been taken from the IRS or anything like that, and so he had no idea that was going to happen. But where did you go before? Like right before you went to you went Jacksonville? No, you went Tallahassee.
Tallahassee.
Right before Tallahassee, where were you?
Actually, I was at, what is the name of that place? It's a holding facility.
Oh,
It was a holding facility, Dayton, Dalton, or something, wherever they house federal inmates.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I actually self-surrendered. Well, I self-surrendered to the federal courthouse. And then from this federal courthouse, they took me over to a holding facility here in Georgia.
So this was your first time ever being incarcerated?
That is correct. In terms
Never
of,
been in a holding cell or
No.
any of that?
No.
So your first experience was no bond. I can't go nowhere. I got to be here.
well, no,
for months.
of course, this was sentencing, so.
Right, that's
yeah,
what I'm saying.
Yeah, so
Normally,
there
if
was no
somebody makes a
opportunity
bad
to.
decision,
Yeah.
and like a
Yeah.
DUI or anything,
No,
you can go
no.
to jail and you get out that night
Yeah.
because you can bond out, but
Yeah.
you didn't have any options.
No.
What was that like for you?
Oh my gosh, I will tell you that once I did self-surrender to the federal government and they took me over to the holding facility, they immediately put me in a wheelchair because they knew of my degenerative disease that I have in my spine. And so I sat back in a holding cell and I thought I had died again. It was a horrible experience, and it was barbed wires. It's just, I can't even describe, like I felt like I was in a dog cage.
wow.
And so a few hours later, of course, when when they came to get me, the feds came to get me to take me over to the holding facility, I happened to the lady who was a part of it, the white male federal agents said, get her out of the wheelchair. She can walk enough to get into the van.
Wow. Wow.
And there was a black female, and she says, no, she can't if I have to pick her up myself.
Wow.
We're going to pick her up and take care of her. So God had an angel at every step of the way. Then when I got to the holding facility, they threw me in like a hole there, another area, without any type of blankets or anything. And then, just the guy put on my ID card that I was white because I was fair-skinned. And so I said, you got this wrong. I'm black, right? So then he was like, oh, you are? Literally. And that was the beginning. I thought about it. I said, maybe I should have kept it on there.
Right. I'm saying in my head, maybe
I should have kept it on there, right?
treatment.
Yeah, maybe I just leave it on there,
Wow.
But ultimately they ended up taking me and they allowed me to stay in medical because of my situation. They allowed me to stay in medical without going into general population. And in the 2 weeks I was there, the doctor on staff sent a notice to the judge and said, she needs to be home. This is not the right environment, and this lady should not be there. But because that particular facility, whatever title the administrator is, said that we could lose funding if we allow her to be released from here. I don't know if you remember that whole process.
Is this the head count thing?
Yes. And this is just in the holding facility.
Wow.
They said she should not be here. Her medical condition, we can't even handle this. So we had the attorneys on the phone. Everybody was engaged into me being released at that point, even at the holding facility. And they refused to send the information over to the judge, letting her know that I could not, that was not the right environment for me to be in. And so from that, they ended up putting me in regular population, which I saw things that I never thought I would see in my life. I wasn't raised in a family that spoke profanity, so I never heard people cursing. I've never been in an environment where people fight.
Wow.
I saw all of that.
Wait a minute, where you been at? You ain't heard
California.
Not just that. It's just that it's your environment. Like I was never raised in that type of environment.
So they literally like flipped you up.
Her sister's a pastor. Yeah.
Yeah,
sister,
yeah.
yeah.
I wasn't raised like that. And I got married and pregnant at 19, 20 years old. I married a military guy.
Wow.
I just wasn't exposed to that. So I was terrified.
Right.
It just happened to be, let me tell you, some of the other inmates are some of the best people that you will ever meet in your life. Those young girls took care of me as if I was their mother.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Oh, that's
they just really took care of me. If somebody would come in the area I was in and said a bad word, oh no, that wasn't going to happen. So, even from that, even when they actually allowed me to get private transportation, they had with me by myself when they took me to Tallahassee. And, so they were fortunate, and, I was fortunate enough to get that. They wouldn't even shackle me. I've never even had handcuffs on.
Oh, wow.
So what about the Tallahassee? Were you in a camp?
No, they sent me to a low because
What's
of
a
a
low?
head count.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was a head count victim as well. I was supposed to go to Mariana, which is a camp. They said that Mariana can't handle someone in a wheelchair. That's what was the reason. So we're going to take you to Tallahassee. I get to Tallahassee, meet the doctor. He's like, well, why is she here? Literally, people are asking these questions like, why is she here? They said, oh, we have to hold her and send her over to Mariana. She's not supposed to be here. But they never did.
So you
head
never
count.
went to Mariana?
No.
Wow.
Does low mean
Just
A
a step.
low-
It means that they have barbed wires they don't have the big barbed wires like a maximum security prison.
Gotcha.
So
Low
you-
But they
security.
have
low
like
security.
a,
Okay.
a
Okay.
low, they just
Low
have a
security.
regular fence.
Okay, so it's low
Like,
security, not
it's
max.
low
Okay,
security,
gotcha.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. But even the doctor, like I will tell you that even the warden pushed some strings. I got out in 8 months. I only did 8 months.
Wow. Why?
God's favor.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yep. That's right.
God's favor.
That's right.
God's favor.
How did
Because
this-
when I left there and I went to the halfway house, they released me on the First Step Act.
What's that?
FSA is a First Step Act that was implemented for people that have medical problems, and we were in the heart of COVID, remember? It was in December of 2021. So it was during COVID time, they were not putting people or not, necessarily keeping people in prison as a result of it. So they immediately started my paperwork once I got there. And my family called 500 times a day, so that probably made a difference too.
How did
But,
did this affect your relationship with your kids and your husband? Not at all. That's amazing because
is
some people
amazing.
don't have the support that you have. Your situation is kind of like a 1 in 10.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
you had the support from your family, you had your spouse, your kids,
had a great
your
attorney.
siblings.
Oh, I had attorneys calling.
You had a great
I had
Listen,
attorneys calling.
representation matters. And the thing is, people that know what they're doing, they're making bad decisions, they know at some point they can get caught and go to jail. They don't sit anything to the side to get the proper
right.
representation.
Yeah, that's right.
So they're treated unfairly. They don't get the proper sentencing, like another young lady that we had on as a guest. Because of her attorney, she did what? It was close to 5 years in jail.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely had great attorneys.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No
Oh, yeah.
question. I had great.
Representation matters.
It does. It really matters. It really does.
It makes a huge difference. And back to, if you remember, this was another situation that happened from 35, 40 years ago. There was a warrant for me out of Colorado that was on this, it was in my indictment on my pre-sentencing, that there was a pending warrant. There was no warrant. They actually kept me there an extra 3 months until my attorneys got involved. And this was something from like 40 years ago.
Wow.
Out of Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, it was a identity theft. Yeah, like a traffic ticket.
Traffic,
remember?
something, yeah.
It was a traffic.
It was some traffic
ticket.
violation
Never been
or
in Colorado
something.
before.
No.
And yeah.
Wow. So you had to prove your innocence.
I had to prove my innocence because I
Again.
were really supposed to be getting out like March or April. And because I had a horrible counselor there that really didn't care, and the warden got involved actually. Yeah, she really, if it wasn't for the warden, and then my family called every other day, literally. And what I want, anyone who's listening to this is facing this is what I want people to know. Your people have got to call. My people called at least 3 or 4 times a week.
Wow.
If your people, because they even threatened to call the region office, people need to know that it does work. Because if I didn't have that, I would have sat there for 17 months.
Where do they need to call?
Well, the Federal Regional Center. I'll have to get that information
Okay,
for you
we'll
guys
get
to
that
put it on your
information.
website,
Yeah,
because
that'd
they
be good.
really need to know that. And there are people that are still sitting there. Their paperwork has already been approved for them to go home.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yes, and we'll definitely talk about. There's just a lot going on in the system that's internal that people just don't know about.
Yeah.
I saw everything. There's nothing I didn't see.
Give us some inside information.
Oh, my
on
God.
Some of the things you saw.
I've just seen at how it was this one lady there at 14 years old. She had some sort of criminal activity or did something. They held her back because of something she did at 14, and she was 42 years old.
As a minor, and they held her back.
And it
from
held her
getting
back
out?
from getting out.
From getting released. Wow.
And the crime was when she was 14 years old.
And she was
Mind you,
42.
mine was probably, I was 31, 32 years old, and now I'm 66.
And you're still looking at the same crime, like looking at me as if I did, the same, like,
Right.
as a, the same crime,
Yeah.
which is
Absolutely.
crazy to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
But being in prison, period, is horrible. It's a horrible experience. It's humiliating. I remember they were doing a count, and a guard walked by and said, "Why are you not standing?" I said, "I'm in a wheelchair." She said, "That don't mean you can't stand up."
Wow.
And I said, "Ma'am, I cannot stand up." She says, "Well, let me go look because I'm going to take you to the hole
Oh,
if this is not in your paperwork."
wow. So if it wasn't your paper, you was going to go in the hole.
Yeah, what they call the hole.
What they
yeah.
call, wow.
So what's life like
Yeah,
for
after.
you now
Yeah,
after
yeah.
prison?
Oh my gosh, it didn't change for me much. I immediately was able to get my life back.
Wow.
That's a blessing.
That's a
I
blessing.
I honestly,
So when you say, elaborate that on a little bit, when you say it didn't change, that doesn't mean that you were still living in the hell that you were living in jail. You mean like the luxury that you had prior
right,
to.
yeah. My personal life did not change. My husband, he just held everything down in my
That's
absence.
amazing.
Wow.
So that part didn't change, but mentally,
Yeah.
I'm still hurting.
Wow. Yeah.
And mind you, my major is psychology. I decided to go back and pursue a psychology degree. But even with everything that I know, and trying to identify with my own self-worth, I'm still very insecure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still hurting.
They stripped you from
They stripped me from that because now what I thought as far as being someone upstanding and doing good quality of work, if my clients knew that I experienced this,
Yeah.
I had someone to Google my name.
Because you did have high profile clients.
Right.
And so.
And so she Googled my name and she asked if it was me.
Wow.
And I told her it was.
Did you keep the client? Did the client stay?
No.
Wow. 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 She didn't ask you any questions like why? What
Yeah, she
happened?
wasn't actually a client. She was a potential
Potential-
client.
potential client,
But the
yeah.
client who referred her to me stayed.
Okay. Okay.
The new client that actually Googled my name, which is a very common name, she did not. She called me and apologized because the client that referred her went off on her.
You got the loyal ones. They don't care.
right.
They're gonna be loyal to the end. So I
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about your mandatory conditions because we talked about another guest prior to
Sure.
a prior guest, and let me just tell what her mandatory conditions were. Right. You must not commit another federal, state, or local crime. You must not unlawfully possess a controlled substance. You must refrain from any unlawful use of controlled substance. You must submit to one drug test within 15 days of release from imprisonment, at least 2 periodic drug tests thereafter, as determined by the courts. And you must cooperate in the collection of DNA as directed by the probation officer. That's it.
Wow.
That's all. That's all. I mean,
Because-
now, don't get me wrong, I'm not diffusing what happened with you. I'm
Right.
not.
Yeah.
But when our prior,
difference.
it's such a difference
Yeah.
compared to your case,
Right.
compared to her case, and that's. She had firearms, all that stuff. None of that stuff is in yours. So
Right.
that means there's no mandatory condition.
I can't vote, and I have a
can't-
problem with
okay.
that.
You can't. Okay. Yeah.
You
And,
still
yeah.
can't vote?
You can't vote.
I
even though-
cannot vote because I'm still on probation.
Oh, okay.
Even though my probation officers are putting it, because that I literally just finished things up. What, a year? A year ago? Yeah. And I don't have a probation officer that shows up. I don't have that problem. Thank God.
So you don't have anybody to come to your house or just show up unannounced, anything like that. You actually go to the probation officer's office. and things like
I've went twice, and she said that was enough.
Wow. Wow. It like I said, it's such a difference in the
Yeah.
cases.
It is.
It's such a difference, and I want to try to understand that. What makes like I said, I know that it was only one count. I know that the IRS did not, nobody ever sent any money out, but it still was.
They indicted me.
21.
I
They
have
still
a,
indicted- yeah,
I have a felony conviction.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's what I'm saying.
I
like,
can't even. I'm entering into at 68. I'm entering once I graduate next year. I'm entering into the doctoral program.
wow.
I cannot become a psychiatrist even after I get my PhD because of my convicted felon.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
So that, I mean,
Yeah.
it may not be a big deal to other people listening to the story or
Right.
whatever, but that is a big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It
That is a big
Absolutely.
deal
It is.
because you're now really tapping into my livelihood. Because if I want to be 80 or 90 years old and get it, it should be okay for
That's
me to
right.
be able
That's
to
right.
get it.
That's right.
And share with the people that's listening exactly why you pled guilty.
Yeah.
It wasn't
I was
because
afraid.
you were guilty.
Clearly,
Yeah,
I was
clearly.
afraid.
You're right.
I honestly, if they came up here and said I did something there, I'd be like, okay, where do I sign? I'm not gonna play with the federal government.
Wow.
They scare me. I am terrified.
Do you see that a lot, Josie?
Yeah. I do.
I am
see it a lot.
terrified of the federal government.
I'm one of those people who fight, right?
Right.
Yeah, you wanted me to fight.
I want her to fight. I wanted her to
Yeah.
fight to the end because I
Yes.
knew she didn't do anything wrong. Like
Right.
literally, and I was so mad with her when she pleaded,
She was.
and I ended up not being an attorney.
This lady is so, when I say passionate, and you don't come across a lot of people that's passionate about it like
Absolutely.
she is.
Absolutely.
You are probably going to come across attorneys that as long as you pay me, if I don't think I can win your case, you need to plead. That's going to be their advice to you is to plead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, the attorney that actually ended up taking the case, and he was paid quite well.
Yes, he was.
He actually didn't force me to plea. I told him in the door.
He didn't.
I told him on the phone.
You
We-
were afraid.
She was. Yes.
It's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not playing with these people. I'm scared of them. Yes, I am. What do I
Did
need
you
to
actually think
do?
you were gonna get 21 months though?
No, I just think that if I had went to trial, that I would have probably done at least 2 or 3 years. And I don't believe that anybody can beat the federal government. When you mentioned before that you won a case, I'm like, well, we need to put you on
Yeah.
a silver platter somewhere because
Yes.
I don't see that. And
see,
I
that's the
know a
thing.
lot of
But
people.
we
That's the
we do
thing.
though. We do win though. We do win.
Like Josie
Yeah,
said,
we win.
the government only take cases to trial that they know they're gonna win.
Yeah. Or
My,
that they're gonna
my,
plead.
my case was settled outside of court. They knew they wouldn't win inside
Yep.
of the
Yep.
court.
But once a grand jury indict you, that changes the game.
I feel like this. A grand jury would indict a pencil.
Yes.
They will. Honestly.
Yes.
Well, that's what
here's
I've
the thing.
heard.
You
Yeah, I've
don't
heard
get,
that.
You don't get to go and defend yourself. That's
right.
only the Department of Justice gets to go
Yeah.
and say
Right.
what you've done.
Right.
Yes.
And of course, they're going to make it on their end. So you don't get to defend yourself. So of course they're going to indict you because all they see is one sided.
Right.
And so that's all they see. So honestly, we have won on cases
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
We have because they have to. It's certain things that they have to be able to show,
Right.
And it has to be without reasonable
Reasonable
doubt.
doubt. Yeah.
And with this reasonable doubt, they're not going to take it. They're not going to take it to court because they know they're not going to win.
Right.
But and you know how I feel about all of that. But I
I would
to
have been upset with you too.
yeah, because
Yeah.
the fact that all this and then you don't even have government never got any money, right? It was like,
That's the thing.
yeah, the government never got any money. But I understand. But let's go back to really quick. What is this like? We're not gonna name names, but I felt like this was for bigger fish, and because you did not rat anyone out, they went after you because it was
That
a
is
bigger.
correct.
It wasn't it a bigger
Yeah.
fish that they wanted than you.
Yeah, I was working as a bookkeeper years and years ago for a lady that had a firm, and the lady ended up passing away. And so there was 2 people that the federal government actually wanted me to, all I ever saw them do was coming into the office, but they wanted me to allude to some level of criminal activity that I had seen, and I really didn't see anything, and I told them that. But they still wanted me to testify against them, and they wanted to use me and leverage me as a witness in that case. But nothing ever developed from it.
No, it
Wow.
didn't. No, but
They
definitely
wanted me to,
yeah,
though. They wanted me to.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
feel like that's why?
Oh yeah. I do. I feel like that's
It had nothing to do with anything I did.
Nothing to do with
No.
it. And that's what makes me
And I'm
so
glad you actually brought that up,
angry.
because that's really
Because
important
that's
for
real
people to know.
life.
Yeah.
It's real life.
And I was just a bookkeeper. I was working for this lady. I was working as her bookkeeper.
But-
And yeah.
Yeah, and another part of that was, she passed away all of a sudden. She was going to be the witness.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
Yeah, she was their star witness.
Yeah, and she
What
passed away.
happened to it? Was no.
Hey, we asked no questions, right? We asked no questions. We just know we weren't gonna get involved in that.
I was
Wow.
long gone. I just happened to be one of the admin people that
Oh,
was
my
working in the
goodness.
office, and
Wow.
and yet, yeah, they wanted anyone that actually worked in that office that could have seen,
What had happened, and I think also maybe they looked at, and I don't know, your criminal past or something,
yeah.
and say, maybe we can get her on something, and they found something to get you on, it's to see if they could make you be a
Right.
witness to them,
For
and then
sure.
you didn't, forced you to be a
Absolutely.
witness, then you didn't, and they went here.
And minor criminal past, just
Yeah.
for the record.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
so
minor,
true.
yeah, like,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Those checks were
Exactly.
paid.
So,
Yeah.
and so you
Yeah.
people, you can pretty much, be indicted on something that you didn't even do.
Right.
Right.
Because and it's the craziest thing.
But unfortunately, people don't realize, I don't care if it's a traffic ticket or anything that you do, like I'm so straight and narrow now, it's ridiculous. But you don't realize that little petty things you do can have an impact on your life.
Absolutely.
A return check from, back in the day, I think everybody used to bounce checks. At least I thought they did anyway. If you wanted something, you could pay for it later.
I didn't
right?
want them.
I know, right?
I was certainly irresponsible and made some irresponsible
But you were
choices
30.
back then. Yeah, I mean,
As a young
whatever.
adult, still trying to figure life
trying to
out.
figure- exactly.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that you don't realize the impact
Right.
that if they come after you for something
Yes.
else, that even something as petty as a return check
Wow.
can have a huge impact on your being sentenced, or
That's good.
them using that as leverage. Well, we're just going to use your criminal past against you.
Yeah.
I never
And
looked
exactly-
at it that way.
And they did.
Wow.
You
They
have to
did.
look at it that way.
And
Because,
Wow.
even the judge brought it up. Like I said, even the judge brought up the criminal past.
Yeah.
About that, because they made sure they alluded to her that was the issue, was she had a criminal, a small minor criminal past,
Wow.
and so you're right. That's a
It
good
doesn't
way of
matter what
putting
it is,
to
yeah.
People is that
Yeah.
your past could have an effect on if something happens, where they can actually
Right.
bring you in on something you had nothing
Right.
to do with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing, you knew nothing about.
And
Absolutely.
that's why kids should listen to their parents.
They should
Yeah.
listen to their parents. And to be honest with you, everything that you do, like I do fear them now more than I have ever feared them. That I would never, if it's not above board, I
You don't want
would
anything
never,
to do
I
with
would
it.
never put myself back in that situation ever again. I wouldn't care what it was. I just
Right.
wouldn't do it, because if they'll snatch me at 65, 66 years old,
They don't care. In a wheelchair.
in a wheelchair,
In a wheelchair.
Right.
You had 2 surgeries on your spine.
don't underestimate the fact that they will do this to anyone. It doesn't matter your social status. It doesn't matter who you know.
That's right.
Yes,
Doesn't
yes,
matter.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we see that from the politicians that's being incarcerated.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have no mercy.
We're seeing it in the entertainment industry.
You know, it doesn't matter. And so, fortunately, I just, if no one takes anything else away, just abide by the laws of this country. That I will tell you this, and I probably shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. The reality of it is let me tell you what hurts me the most is that we have someone running for president with a 34-count indictment.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Say, yeah, good.
If I had one over here.
Yes.
Speak up. We don't toast to that.
Yeah,
And let me tell you, and that can be our
Okay,
closing thing. That what hurts me. And I hope that if anybody's watching this, that they understand. I had 1 count.
One count.
This man have a 34-count indictment, and you guys actually have 40+% of the American people that think it's okay.
Speak,
Come
my
on
sister,
now.
speak.
Come on now.
So I just for the record, I'm just
Okay,
saying.
so we're going to close on this. Yes. Your story is the opposite of a lot of people that we speak with.
Sure.
You had a support system. When you came out, you didn't have to depend on the government resources, which is literally no resources at all. What advice can you give to like a single mom with no resources and no support at all?
Well, I will tell you, it's a chance for me to launch my nonprofit.
There you go. Let's do it.
I had started an organization a couple of years ago called Pieces of the Dream Foundation. And I've just started implementing. I decided to take a course, a certification course at University of Georgia, and became certified grant writer. And so I decided I wanted to write grants to help people that is in federal and state prison and offer them funding when they come out of prison.
That's amazing. Round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
And even the professor who actually taught the course told me that I was sitting on a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. She said because the incarceration rates in this country is ridiculous.
It is.
It's all about the head count.
It is.
They don't care who you are.
Wow.
That's right.
If you do anything, whether you are aware of the criminal activity or not.
Yes.
And these people that are coming out of prison, you know, just in listening to other people's stories, my heart goes out to them.
Yes.
Because you're right, everybody don't have a support system.
That's right.
I would love to be able to help someone coming out of prison and get them some sort of educational background. Look, pay for their housing
Yes.
for at least a year.
Yes. Yes.
You know, make sure that they're taken care of. So that's
And the
ultimately.
restitution that they
Right,
have that
right.
you know
Yeah.
that they have to pay. additional
Absolutely.
amount. Yeah, you're
You
right.
know?
Wow, that's an amazing program. We want to
It
know
is.
more about it.
Yes,
yes,
yes.
please. When you get
do.
when you have the program up, let us know. We can put it on our website. We can talk to
Yes.
people about it and let them know there's a program out there now to help people when they are when they release from prison.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys. And thank you guys for having me. This has
so
been such an
much for
honor.
joining.
And it's
Thank you.
hard because I'm on camera telling my truth.
Thank
But
you
it's
so
been
much for telling the
fantastic.
truth, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to tell your truth to us.
Right.
So we really appreciate that.
We do.
Oh, I appreciate you guys.
All right, well,
Thank you.
all right, Ms. Moore, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.